We're going to look from Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1 gives a history. What is written down for us is not prophecy, it's history, and it's describing why was the Roman world the way it was? Why was there so much corruption? Why was there so much sin? Why was there such sin in the Gentile world that could be seen there in the first century? And while this is an account of history, and that's exactly what it is, it also would seem to be prophetic as well, but it's not. But when you make the same mistakes as people in the past, you're going to get the same results as the people in the past. You're going down the same pathway, and it's a pathway that leads to the worst sort of things when you make those mistakes. And if the Bible were not true at all, this lesson couldn't even exist. It could not, because what is written in Romans chapter 1 wouldn't reflect anything that we could see today. But it does. It does reflect it. We've gone down the same path, and we're ending up in the same place. Someone knew a lot to write this down. And that someone who knows a lot isn't Paul so much, but it's God who inspired the words and who truly knew the history that was there. Now let's begin in Romans chapter 1 and verse 18. And what we're reading sounds like current events, things that have happened within, not just within our lifetime, but really predating all of us about a century or so. But this is a process. It takes a while for these things to fester and these things to just become worse and worse. Now, verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness or ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Now this is a statement of fact, and it is a promise that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness. It will occur. His wrath is seen. Now, don't think that this is limited to just final judgment. A final judgment is going to take place. But God's wrath being shown upon this earth isn't just limited to that. His wrath can be seen through history. And yes, people will try to bring about some sort of other explanation other than it's the wrath of God. But I tell you, some folks living through, it wasn't too long ago, just a few lessons ago, I think, that we were talking about the bubonic plague. That the people going through the bubonic plague, they were saying, this is the wrath of God. They were saying it. Those that were seeing the destruction brought on by the Mongols, streaming out of the east, actually they were streaming all over the place. They went into China, they went into the Middle East. Of course, they went also into getting into Hungary and Romania, what's now Romania, and also going into Poland, that the people that met them saw the destructiveness of them, said, this is the wrath of God. They saw it as the wrath of God. Now, one can give a natural explanation of, no, that's just the Mongols on horseback, and okay, sure. Or it's just this virus that's been spread by fleas. Okay, sure. But could there not be the hand of God in it? Could there not be? And we can very well understand that God's wrath will be revealed. and that it can be seen on a large scale, like the two examples right there, but it can also be seen in a small scale of an individual who just will not be obedient to God. He or she is going to refuse God, and there will be consequences for that. Consequences being faced in this life and for eternity. It will be there. Now, it's revealed. And verse 19, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. All right, another statement of fact. And this is coming from God Himself saying this, that what is known of God is manifest in them. And the them would include everyone, not just those who are suppressing the truth of God. It's not just that, but it's that of to everyone, that what may be known of God is manifest in you. And it's clearly shown through creation. Creation, and you can just start with yourself, because you know you didn't create yourself. And you know that you have systems that all work together. And you can reason, you can think, and you can also make moral decisions. You have free will. You have moral decisions, and you can choose right or you can choose wrong. Now, here's the thing. If reality, if the world we live in, is just a grand, colossal accident. If that's what it is, if there is no God, if all we are just this colossal accident upon accident upon accident upon numberless accidents, there would be no such thing as moral thought at all. Not in the least. The idea of right and wrong wouldn't exist. It would not exist. That would only exist from a lawmaker who is putting into us the idea and the ability to judge right and wrong. From a Darwinistic, from an evolution standpoint, it's meaningless. You don't need that to survive. You don't need it. It would be a flaw that would be there. But no, we're not from evolution. We're not from an accident. We are created by God, who gives laws and us the ability to judge right and wrong, to follow the law or to reject the law. We have that ability to do it. Now, he says, what may be known of God is manifest in you. You've got a soul. You are a self. You are basically self-contained. You are a complete individual. That's what you are. And you can also prove one thing beyond anything else. One thing. And you don't need a scientist or an expert or any kind of help. You can know you exist. You can know that. And then you can continue on from there. You have Descartes, that the French philosopher, he's the one that said, I think, therefore I am. All right, which has been, I have no idea how many times that's been used in advertising or in something else, but they never give you the rest of the argument. They stop it there. I think, therefore I am. But where he went with that argument is because I know I exist, I can also know God must exist too. They don't want to go that far with it. They don't want to take it that far. The first part sounds pretty good, but they don't want to give you the rest of his argument, of what he was in fact saying. Now, what may be known of God is shown to us, and it's shown throughout creation. We can know these things cannot spring up from nothing. It's impossible. This building did not spring up from nothing. Your automobile did not spring up from nothing. If you are wearing a watch or have a cell phone, that didn't spring up for nothing. Someone had to build it. Someone prior to that had to design it. And prior to any of all that, there had to be the need for it. So every bit of it is coming from a design, coming from this is something that we need, therefore we design it, and therefore it is built. All of that is coming from someone who did it, or actually it would be many, many people who did it to bring it about. Now, we know that concerning cars and cell phones and buildings, but what about something entirely more, vastly more complicated, and that being life? Just simple life. And something vastly more complicated than that is human life, and a soul and a mind that separates us from the rest of creation. We're still part of creation, but while we can say that dog is smart, that dog doesn't have to make moral decisions, nor would you expect it to. It's not going to. Though we can say a dolphin is smart, that dolphin, once again, doesn't have a conscience, just an animal, has no soul, and you can't expect it to do what you would expect people to do. You can't. You can't do any of that. But with people, we are in fact different. Now we come to verse 20. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly, look at these words, His invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Who would be without excuse? Those who suppress the truth of God. Those who say, as in Psalm 14:1, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable works. There is none who does good. The ones that suppress this truth, which is the greatest truth of all. It is truth number one. Truth number one is God is. You suppress the greatest truth there is, and you get what you get. You are going to go down a path that you were never intended to go down to. And it's not a path of enlightenment. It's not a path of enrichment. It's not a path that somehow brings you to a more noble humanity. It's one that tears it apart. Now, he says, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen. Well, we can know that someone very powerful created all these things. We can know that. And we can also know that everything is made to work in conjunction with everything else. It's like an enormous machine. We can think of it like this: enormous machine that works. All of its parts are working. Everything works, and nothing is without some kind of use. There's nothing that doesn't have some sort of purpose behind it and plays some kind of role in the complexity in all this. And there is complexity. And wherever you go, you're going to find it. Years ago, before we could send submarines to the bottom of the oceans, to extremely deep parts, it was said as a matter of fact by biologists and others that there can be no life at the bottom of the oceans. There's no light that's there. Nothing can live down there. Well, they were wrong. Entirely wrong. that there's life. It's teeming with life at the deepest parts of the ocean. It's teeming with life that could not exist above the surface, but can certainly exist in extraordinary pressures, in a different environment altogether. God created. And we can see the wisdom and the intelligence and the extraordinary creativity in all of it. Do you think you could engineer a giraffe? I couldn't. There's no way. A giraffe has extraordinary engineering problems to overcome because of its long neck with a head sitting at the top of it, and of course a brain, and its heart many feet away, 8-10 feet away from the heart. Now, your heart's not near that far away from your brain, but with a giraffe it is. Okay, so when a giraffe's heart is different from ours because it's got to have extraordinary pressure to send blood 8 or 10 feet above it to a brain. All right, that's a lot of pressure. What happens when a giraffe, and it can and does, bends down to drink water out of a stream or to just eat some grass off the ground? What then? You have this extraordinary pressure that would kill the giraffe instantly because it doesn't need that pressure anymore. It would be too much pressure and the giraffe would just drop dead. And yet doesn't. Now, is that from an engineering design, or is that only by accident? It couldn't be accident. That's preposterous. Among millions, actually billions of other things that would be preposterous to think that somehow, and I remember as a child being told that the giraffe has a long neck because it needed to get a hold of leaves of trees, and the longer the neck it had, the better it could survive. Okay? That is a just so story. It sounds exactly like so many other stories that have been made up through the centuries. The fact of the matter is, a giraffe can live in a place without any trees. It doesn't need trees. It can eat off the ground just like a cow. It doesn't need it. And the idea that there's this conscious effort, because that's kind of the way the story was. There's this conscious effort that the giraffes just decided we need longer necks, therefore we have to have children with longer necks. Well, that's just absurd. The whole thing is absurd, and it falls to pieces. Is this from an extraordinary designer? Because it sounds like it to me. Or is this by way of just one fortunate accident after another fortunate accident? Because it's a complex thing to keep that giraffe alive. It's very complex. And it's all built into the giraffe. Not built into you because you don't have that problem, but it's built into that giraffe. It's not built into a cow. A cow doesn't have that problem. Or a rabbit. They've got different design issues. All of them with a designer in it. Now, these are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Yes, we can know this, even as eternal Godhead or eternal power in Godhead. And yes, we can know that too. There was a Greek philosopher, and he came to a conclusion. He saw how regulated the earth was. He saw it how it was. He saw the times of the tides were regulated. Sunrise, sundown, phases of the moon, the seasons, everything seemed to be absolutely according to a regulation. And things such as gravity, things such as basic laws of physics and laws of nature. Everything seemed temperate, strangely so to his mind. And he came to a conclusion. This is a Greek philosopher. He came to a conclusion, and it's Thales of Miletus is his name. He came to a conclusion that that lot of gods supposedly on Mount Olympus, the Olympians as they were known, of Zeus and Athena and Poseidon and Hades, he came to a conclusion they couldn't create this regularity. They couldn't create this consistency. They couldn't create something that is this temperate, something that this predictable, such as the phases of the moon or even the solar eclipses. They couldn't do that. They work at cross purposes, all of them. They are constantly at battle one way or another. And you have the terrible flaws that they have. And if they were to create a world, it wouldn't look like this. It wouldn't maintain human life for very long at all, or any life for that matter. And he came to a conclusion, it can't be them. It can't be, because they don't have the mentality for it. They don't have the capacity for it. They have more of the capacity to destroy rather than create, and more for wrath than for bringing about a world that is gentle and can actually maintain populations and grow populations. And he came to the conclusion, it's not them. So we can see from the creation, we can see a power behind it, but we can also see a character behind it. We can see that. We can see the character of God. Not everything, but we can see the character of God, that He has to be interested in law, because the laws of nature do not break. They don't break. He's got to be someone who's extraordinarily wise, of everything working together and everything continuing on generation after generation. Empires rise, empires fall, and the world continues on. We still have wheat growing. We still have fish in the streams and the oceans. We still have cattle. We still have all these things here. It continues on. And that is from someone who is interested in continuing humanity on this earth. And we can have populations that grow. We can have nations that are formed. Now, we come to this, in this, clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even as eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. That means no atheist can stand before God with any excuse. I couldn't know you existed. By your own existence, you can know that God exists. By your own existence. I remember years ago, door knocking, and it wasn't in this country. I was door knocking, and a man answered the phone. The man had to have been in his 30s. Had to have been. And we began a conversation, invite him to a gospel meeting. We have a conversation. Do you believe there is a God? And the answer he gave stunned me, because he said, I never really thought about it. You've got to be 30 years old or over, and you've never thought about it. What has occupied your mind? What drug have you been taking to where you've not been sober enough to think this? If you should have come across that question before you were even an adult, but especially as an adult, that should have crossed your mind to have come to some kind of decision. But you're going to say, I never really thought about it. How? How could you not? Even the atheists think about it. Everybody thinks about it. How did it pass you? Well, two things. Either he's overly occupied by something, and I wouldn't put alcohol out of the mix in that one, or he was just lying to me, and he had thought about it. But here is some examples. Michael Behe, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He is a microbiologist. He is the one, and he was an atheist. He's the one that came up with the terms irreducible complexity. And looking at, and this is where you can see the design of God everywhere. You go into the microscopic world, or even into the subatomic world, going even smaller than that. You're going to find God. You're going to find the evidence of it. You go out into the main world, or the solar system, or the galaxies, or the universe, you will find the evidence of God. He's everywhere. You can't escape it. Michael Behe, what he said is cells, living cells, no matter what cells you're talking about, no matter if it's an amoeba or whatever it is, there is what is known as irreducible complexity, that it is highly complex and you can't take one thing out of it and it still lives. You can't. It's irreducible. It has exactly what is necessary to have life. You reduce it by one thing and it will die. But it's complex. It's like having, you can think of it like a large factory. And the factory has to have power. The factory has to have workers. The factory has to have resources coming in. The factory has to have other resources going out, what it has produced. The factory also has to have waste being removed. The factory has to have all these various machines that are making whatever it is that it's making, and the workers who are skilled to do it. Now, take any one of those things away, and the factory isn't a factory anymore. It can't produce anything. You take the resources away, there's nothing to make something out of. You take the power away, it's gone. You take the workers away, you take the machines away. Every bit of it is complex. And it has to be that way for it to even run, for it to work. And he said that's exactly what a living cell is like. That's precisely what a living cell is like. You can't take any of these things away. And what evolution says is that you can have life and these things gradually come in line. Gradually come around to where you have more and more complexity to it. But what he discovered, and your basic atheist doesn't like it, what he discovered is that you can't reduce it beyond a certain point, and it is highly complex. Is that design? Yes, it is. Is it God? Who else is it going to be? All right. Now, there's also the first law of thermodynamics. This is another problem that the atheists face and Darwinians face. The first law of thermodynamics. And here's the thing. If you have a theory that goes against any law of physics, your theory's dead. It's dead on arrival. Your theory is a nothing theory. Your theory is shot at that point. What does the first law of thermodynamics state? It basically states you can neither create nor destroy matter. Matter can't create itself, nor can you, an intelligent human being, you cannot create matter. You can take matter and reform it into something else. You can do that. You can take something that you have formed and then you can change the form. You can burn it, but it's still matter. It's still there. You just changed its form again. You can take an axe to it. The matter is still there. Every bit of it is still there. Even if it's now ashes, it's still there. You can't destroy it. So how do you get something from nothing, which is actually, you're going to have to explain that without a God. You're going to have to explain it. How do you get something from nothing? And I remember years ago, and it was so, it just shows the foolishness that people have. There was someone who created a program of where it was showing how life, by way of the program, could show how life could evolve by using this computer program. All right? Now, it was pointed out to them that you do realize that computer was designed. And you do realize that you program the computer. So the software is also designed. And any kind of graphics it may have, that's either part of the software or something. That too is designed. You are proving design rather than evolution. You're proving it. Now, with some, that really didn't matter at all. But the fact is that you cannot prove there is no God. You cannot prove, Darwin couldn't do it, no one can do it, that we came from nothing. That cannot be proved because it didn't happen. Now, speaking of Darwin, his theory denies anything supernatural. Everything is just natural. It denies the supernatural while calling on innumerable miracles to occur. Now, that's a hidden thing. They don't like talking about that. But it's true. It requires innumerable miracles for it to even occur. They're countless. Now, we go to verse 21. Because although they, look at this, they knew God. Although they knew God, they did not glorify Him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. There's no enlightenment here. Their foolish hearts were darkened. Notice what it says in all this. They knew God existed. They knew it. And I think that with the statement here, they are without excuse, I think everybody can know there is a God. That there is something above nature that brought about nature. Everyone can know it. They knew it. This would be that ancient world. They knew it. They didn't glorify Him as God. They were not thankful, but became futile in their thoughts. Well, what does that even mean? What does it mean to be futile? That is, futile means something that is pointless, that's useless, that has no effect whatsoever. It's ineffective. It is something that is incredibly trivial or has no useful purpose whatsoever. That's what futility or futile means. That there's nothing solid about it. There's nothing that's going to be any good about it. It's just a nothing. It's a nothing. And you could definitely just ignore something that's futile and live your life fine. Live your life better. But we come to verse 22. Professing to be wise, they became fools. It already said their foolish hearts were darkened. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Psalm 14:1. We also have Proverbs 12:15. The way of the fool is right in his own eyes. Here is someone that their foolish hearts have been darkened, that they have become fools, proclaiming themselves to be wise. They have become fools. Well, they're wise in their own eyes. They think they're right in their own eyes. And you're going to have a hard time convincing them they're not right, because they've convinced themselves that they are and won't listen to anything else. They will not listen to anything else. And so here, professing to be some sort of expert, professing to have some sort of knowledge, some sort of wisdom, it's nothing. It's just futility, and it's a darkened heart. Becoming a fool, a greater and greater fool. That's what you get. Now, we just asked the question. We've not asked it thus far. Can we see this sort of thing today? Well, yeah, and we can see that it's been going on for a while. We can see that. Of individuals who they say they know better, they make fun of and it becomes just a joke to them of all that is godly, all that concerns God. It's just something to be ridiculed. That's it. Well, you can ridicule something, you can mock something, but that doesn't mean it goes away. And that doesn't mean you've got the truth. And you can think something to be the truth, but that doesn't mean it's the truth. And you can think that you're right, but that doesn't mean you're right. Just thinking it and pretending it doesn't make it so. You can go stand on a railroad track and disbelieve there are trains. All right? And you can do that all the way until you're proven wrong with an abrupt collision. All the way. Believing that trains don't exist, fine. You're going to find out. You put your faith to the test. What's that railroad there for anyway? Why do you have the tracks? All right, just sit there and see what happens. Sit there. Now, they knew, but they didn't want to know. They're going to suppress that knowledge. And they become fools, greater and greater fools. Now, we can't do this section, there's 15 verses. We can't give this justice in one lesson. We can't. Because there's more about this that shows where this path leads. And it leads to the same place. And that is a more and more wicked people. That's what it brings. Years ago, there was a debate. The debate was that of one side saying that atheism brings evil behavior. The other saying atheism doesn't bring evil behavior. Well, what does the Bible say? The Bible says it does. What does reality say? Reality actually says, yeah, it does. It does. You know what the first thing Adolf Hitler wanted to do in getting into power? He wanted to get rid of the God of the Bible. But he knew he couldn't. So he attacked what he knew would be an easy target for most. He did attack the Catholic Church. He did do that. But he wanted to get rid of the God of the Bible. And matter of fact, you can see it in his own words. In his own words. Why? So he can do what he wanted to do. That's why. Well, is he not evil? Yes. Was he an atheist? He was brought up Catholic, but no, he was an atheist. And he was riding on the heels of German philosophers such as Nietzsche from the 19th century. He's continuing on in that and doing what Nietzsche would never ever have done, Adolf Hitler would do. And as an atheist, yes, anything could be done. If he wanted to destroy millions of people, he'll do it. If he will destroy millions of acres of land to starve out a people, he'll do that too. And use his own people as though they're just little toy soldiers, shoving them around and they die in the process. It doesn't matter with him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. Evil, well, you're not going to find evil with God. you're going to find that he is the complete opposite of it. But you want to have a people that have no anchor, a people that have no sense of morality whatsoever, strip God out of their lives. And I tell you, here recently with the school shooter that was just a couple of weeks ago or so, or anybody else going out in public and just killing complete strangers, these are people that they consider themselves having no purpose, having no meaning to their life, and neither do you. Did God give them that notion? No, not at all. Atheism did. Darwinism did. And that everything is meaningless? Didn't get that from God either. But atheism does. And that your life is pointless, that your life is worthless. God never said that, but atheism does. Now, we need to turn inward and understand that we will be judged, and understand that God tells us a lot. And we can learn. We can learn from the biblical text. We can learn everything we need to know about our past, about our future, and about our present. We can know a lot about humanity, and we can know a lot about reality, and it's all given to us in one very neat package, inspired by God. Do we accept it or not? Because it's meant for our salvation. It's meant to teach us for everything that is good. And with that we learn, and with that we're to develop faith. And with that faith we follow it. So we hear the word, we believe, we repent of our sins. It'll tell us. Confess a faith that Jesus is the Christ. That is actually having that faith. Just saying those words is meaningless. Having that faith, and then being baptized, and there your sins are forgiven, and you're brought into His kingdom to live right before Him, to learn and to grow from His Word. We ask this morning, if you need to respond to the invitation, that you come as we stand and sing.